Emory is 15, and he is the weakest boy in his father's house. His family sits at the very bottom of the noble ranks in a small kingdom on the coast of Britain, and everyone above them knows it. His clothes are patched leather that smells of the animal it came from. His arms shake after a dozen sword strikes. Every morning he trains anyway, because his father is a war hero and Emory wants, more than anything, to make the man proud. What he is actually good at is books. He reads every scroll in the family library. He wanders the woods finding the herbs his dead mother wrote about. And he has spent months secretly carving a wooden puzzle box with a tiny figurine that rises when the lid opens. The box is for Princess Gwyneth, the king's daughter, who is turning 16. She and Emory met years ago in the royal library. Both of them motherless, both of them addicted to maps and old stories. She is the only person in the kingdom who treats him like he is worth talking to. So he rides to her birthday feast with the box in his pouch, and the night falls apart in stages. First, the highest-ranked noble in the kingdom, a fat man named Phantomar, greets Emory's father with an insult and lets his son Abe say out loud that the Ambroses smell. Emory says nothing, because his father has told him never to make trouble with that family. Then the gift-giving line reaches them. Everyone ahead has brought jewels and chests of gold. Emory looks at his carved wooden box, decides it is a joke, and keeps it in the pouch while his father apologizes to the king for having nothing to give. Then Gwen walks past every noble in the hall, cuts off Abe mid-compliment, grabs Emory by the arm, and drags him out to the garden. That part goes well. They talk for an hour about the world map her uncle brought back from 2 years of traveling, about Africa and China and everywhere she wants to see. She tells him he is a good friend. He is halfway through handing her the box when the king and Phantomar walk into the garden. Phantomar tells the king to stop his daughter from playing with this boy, then orders Emory to lift his head. In the moonlight, Emory's eyes are the wrong color, and Phantomar has been waiting a long time to say the word out loud. The boy is a half-blood. His mother was a Fey Cruton, one of the forest people the kingdom has been trying to burn out for generations. The Cruton are the reason the king's own wife is dead. Emory has no idea what any of this means. He watches his father, the lion's Fong, drop to one knee and admit it. He watches the king's face close. Gwen looks at him with an expression he cannot read and says she does not think they can be friends. Her father drags her away. The box falls, the figurine breaks on the stone, and the palace guards walk Emory out through gates that shut behind him. The ride home is silent. His father promises to explain everything tomorrow. Tomorrow does not happen. That night, marauders come over the wall with torches, shouting that they are here to kill Cruton lovers. Jeffrey shoves his son into a hidden passage in the cellar and holds the door alone. Through a broken slit in the wood, Emory watches his father cut down man after man until his breath gives out, until a blade opens his back, until the last thing he manages is to throw himself upright, pin one marauder to the wall, and scream at his son to run. Emory runs. The stables are full of dead horses and the house is on fire, so he runs west into the woods with riders behind him, trips and goes into the freezing river. The current takes him under. 2 marauders stand on the bank, agree that nobody survives that water, and ride away. At the bottom of the lake, with his lungs burning, something wraps around his leg and drags him back onto the mud. He never finds out what. He lies on the bank soaked and shaking and dying, looks up at the 3 stars lined in a row that he has watched his whole life, and asks them not to let him die. The middle star lights up. A beam comes down. Emory's body lifts off the mud and vanishes. He opens his eyes under a blue sky, in front of a white castle 10 times the size of his king's, in a line of teenagers being marched toward a purple tower by armored men. His first thought is that he is dead and looking for his father. An old Magus in gray stops the line and speaks directly into tens of thousands of heads at once. Welcome to Magus Academy. They are the chosen few pulled from 1,000 human worlds. They have 7 days. Whoever proves worthy gets to come back. Whoever fails gets sent home with the whole thing wiped out of their memory like a dream. Then he stamps every palm in the crowd with a burning symbol, and suddenly Emory can understand every language around him. The symbol works like a page he can read inside his own mind. His name, his age, his world, his class. Planet 1002 Earth. Class 77. A Roman boy his own age hears the same number and immediately starts organizing, because if they are all from the same world they can at least figure out what happened to each other. That is Julian, a young noble who has clearly done this kind of thing before. 3 more Earth kids come over. Clea, from Alexandria, who is bronze-skinned, blunt, and aware of exactly how beautiful she is. Chumo, from the Far East, who says his name and then almost nothing else for days. And Thrax, a Thracian built like a door, who introduces himself to Julian by calling him a Roman pig. These 5 are, though none of them know it yet, about to become the strongest magi Earth has ever produced. The tower splits them into classes, and Class 77 gets a woman in purple named Minerva. She explains what a magus is by pulling the wind out of the entire room and holding it spinning above her palm, which is the first magic most of these kids have ever seen. Trillions of people live in this galaxy. Only a few 100,000 can touch the primordial energy the gods left behind when they finished fighting over whether the universe should have life in it or nothing at all. That energy comes in 10 elements. Fire, wind, water and earth, then lightning, ice, plant and metal, and then the two rare ones that hold everything else together, light and darkness. Then she brings out a crystal ball to scan everyone for affinity, and this is where the class learns who matters. Most acolytes come up with one element. A handful get two. The kids in the black and white uniforms at the front, who have already made it clear that the lower world children should sit in the back, come from Kalios, an upper-class Magus world that gets invited here every 5 years, and they scan well and know it. Clea comes up with 3 at once, wind, water and lightning, and the room reacts like she is a goddess. Emory is last. The ball hangs over him and goes dark, and stays dark long enough that he decides he is nothing, which is what he has always assumed anyway. Then it turns blue, water, then it splits yellow, earth, then green, plant, then black. For elements, one of them darkness. One acolyte in 1,000. Minerva flies down off her platform to ask his name, and for the first time in his life every eye in a room is on Emory and nobody is laughing. It lasts about half an hour. The second test measures 3 things. Battle power, which is physical, spirit power, which is how much elemental energy you can actually handle, and spirit aptitude, which is how fast your body learns to circulate that energy at all. Aptitude is the one that matters. Rank S learns a new element in a day. Rank A needs 3. The Kalio students post battle powers in the teens and spirit powers over 30. Silva, a girl in a heavy veil who turns out to have the slit iris of a half-blooded bloodline race, posts a battle power of 22 and a spirit power of 41. Clea lands spirit power 37 at rank S and blows a kiss to the crowd. Emory steps onto the symbol and the room goes silent, because everyone wants to see what a quadruple affinity acolyte looks like. Battle power 5, the lowest in the class. Spirit power 20. Also the lowest in the class. And then aptitude rank B. He asks to be tested again. Minerva lets him. Comes back identical. The Kalio students do not even bother to lower their voices. It has been 1,000 years since this academy last admitted a rank B. The boy with 4 elements is the single worst learner in the building, and multiple affinities make it worse, not better, because he has to circulate each element separately and he is slower than everyone at all 4. Minerva tells him kindly that aptitude is the most important factor there is, and then tells him to do his best anyway, which is the most honest cruelty available to her. The rules for the 7 days are simple. Reach spirit power 30 and become a rank 2 acolyte. Get an acceptance letter from one of the academy's institutions. Fail either one and you go home with a blank memory. Emory does the arithmetic in his head. Rank B needs more than a week just to finish circulating one element. He has 4 days of usable time and he has to do both. That night is the first time he lets himself understand that his father is actually dead. He decides 2 things before he falls asleep. He is going to find out what a crutin is, and he is going to become strong enough that the next time somebody kicks in his door, he is not the one hiding behind a cupboard. In the morning he goes with Julian to the Earth Institute, a desert city built out of limestone with a yellow pillar at its heart. Their guide is Darius, an Earth Lord Magus with a farmer's hands and a preacher's timing, who argues that Earth is the strongest element in the universe on the grounds that fire needs heat and water needs a sea, while Earth is the thing you are standing on 95% of the time. He proves it by turning a boulder into a walking stone giant and riding its shoulder. Behind the pillar's gate is the Stone of Origin, a black rock that presses down on everyone who comes near it. First-year acolytes get half a day inside it once, and that is all. Emory makes it 11 steps toward the rock before the pressure stops him. He sits down and closes his eyes, and in the dark of his mind the black rock speaks to him. Calm thy mind, be one with earth, steadfast thy heart, unmoved, unshaken. The rock grows until it swallows him whole, and he holds still and half a day disappears. He comes out with 1 point of spirit power. Julian comes out with 3. That is the shape of the whole trip. Out of 1,000 acolytes, 40 move the test stone on the first day. 100 manage it by nightfall. Julian breaks through on the second day, gets his stone skin spell, and offers to tell Emory exactly how he did it. Emory says no. If somebody hands him the trick, he never actually learns anything, and he is done being the person other people carry. So he sits at the gate all night, alone, while the crowd thins out around him. By the 3rd morning, everyone he arrived with is gone into the next room and Emory is the only face left from his group. He has gained 2 points in 3 days. He pushes until the black rock will not appear in his mind at all anymore, just darkness with him sitting in the middle of it. Darius looks up his file and finds a rank B with 4 affinities. His colleague Felicia says the obvious thing, which is that in any lesser academy in the galaxy, a rank B with 4 elements would be treated as a gift from the gods, and that here he is simply going to fail on the 7th day. Darius watches the boy who has now sat in front of a rock for 24 hours straight, tells her that aptitude is not everything, and goes over to tell Emory to go home and eat something. Emory stands up and immediately falls over, because his legs have gone numb. Julian carries him out. Clea has been waiting at the portal all night and had to be talked out of coming to fetch him. She marches the whole group to dinner and puts food in front of him, and for a moment it is fine, because these 4 strangers from 4 corners of a world he will probably never see again are being kinder to him than anyone since Gwen. Then 5 Kalios acolytes stroll over to the table to say, loudly, that the monkey with rank B is the first acolyte in the history of the academy who could not finish the basics in 3 days, and that their pets are more deserving of a place here. Thrax puts his fist through the table and stands up. Julian stands with him, mostly to keep him from getting killed. The fight is short and it is educational. The blonde Kalios leader freezes Thrax's legs to the floor with an ice spell before Thrax gets a step. Julian blocks the follow-up shot with his stone-skinned arm, and the ice sticks to the stone and freezes the arm solid. Then the other arm, and now both of Earth's fighters are ornaments. The Kalios boys are laughing about primitive monkeys. Emory is unarmed, and physically the weakest person in the room, and he has been watching how the ice bullet behaved when it hit Julian. So he throws a bowl and a spoon into the path of the next 2 spells. Both bullets spend themselves freezing crockery in midair and clatter to the floor. It buys 3 seconds. Clea uses them. A gust of wind knocks the Kalios boys back on their heels, and then a lightning arrow cracks out of her palm, threads between her own friends, and shatters the ice off Thrax's legs and Julian's arms without touching either of them. 2 elements, 2 spells on day 3. That is the moment the Kalios group stops laughing, glances at each other, and decides they are feeling generous today. Their leader turns to leave and walks straight into Chumo, who has somehow moved behind all 5 of them without a single person in a crowded hall seeing him do it. They go. Everyone at the table knows the truth, which is that without Clea they would have lost badly. Thrax spends the night slamming doors and repeating that if he had held a weapon he would have ended that boy. So in the morning he drags the boys to the Institute of Combat, and Emory goes with him because underneath everything he still wants to be the knight his father was. The Combat Institute is a stone city inside the academy, and its greeter is a bald, bearded, enormously loud Magus called Vico who addresses every new arrival as a soft bone. He shows them 2 ways to earn a place. One is the gauntlet, a 100-meter machine of spinning wheels, pikes and swinging axes that will kill you if your one-use protective vest is already spent. The other is the wooden puppets, which fight you with your own weapon at exactly your own battle power, so brute strength gets you nothing and cleverness gets you a point. Thrax picks a spear and wins by tackling the thing and beating its head off. Chumo picks a bow. Julian picks a sword and shield. Emory picks a sword, stands there in standby, and watches all 3 of them fight before he touches the start button, because studying the problem is the only advantage he has ever had. Then he parries the puppet's opening thrust, puts the blade through its chest, sees the marauder from his cellar instead of a wooden face, and smashes it into the wall screaming. The reward drops swordsmanship techniques straight into his head, and years of clumsy practice suddenly make sense. He beats level 2. He loses to level 3 times and gets up each time, and by the end of it his battle power has gone from 5 to 11 and he cannot stop grinning. The gauntlet is the part that nearly kills him. He plans the route from watching the others, jumps the platforms, times the spinning traps by ear the way he once studied construction with his father's scholar, and then an axe catches him in the 3rd section and burns out his protector. Below him, Julian is screaming at him to get down and Vico is telling him nobody has to push this hard. Emory looks at his own shaking legs and recognizes them. They are the legs of the boy who watched through a slit in a cupboard. So he stops being calm. Something snaps open in him, the blades start to look slower than they are, and he runs the last 50 meters of live steel with no protection at all and comes off the other end untouched. Then he collapses and burns with fever, and wakes half a day later in an infirmary bed with all 4 of his friends in the room and rain on the window. While he was out, 3 acolytes tried the same thing after their protectors failed and were cut in half. Julian wants to know what he was thinking. Emory has no answer. The board puts him at rank 101. The Combat Institute takes the top 100. What he does not know is that one of the 5 combat magi, the slender one, has been watching him since the moment he walked in. He has 2 days left, spirit power 24, and a target of 30. Clea takes him to the Water Institute, which is a beach with a lake at its center and a training dome under the water. The guiding Magus there is Carla, and she gives Emory half a day at the Water Origin Stone. In his mind, the stone hands him one line: water is always flowing, never ending, adapting, and drops him into a river that turns into the river he drowned in. He panics, remembers the line, stops fighting the current, and comes out with 2 points. Carla checks his file, sees the aptitude, and says out loud that it is a shame. Then Clea asks her to actually help, and Carla gives Emory the first piece of real strategy anybody has offered him. Emory has spent his crucial first 3 days with Darius, who measures spirit power by asking a boy to shove a rock, which Carla considers the most old-fashioned nonsense in the academy. Her point is that a single dripping droplet will hollow out stone given long enough. Then she asks him what earth and water have in common, and Emory says they are opposites. One refuses to move and the other refuses to hold a shape. That is the right answer, and it earns him the thing he actually needed. A Magus with several affinities gains most on the secondary elements, and the secondary element that sits between earth and water is plant. Emory has 4 affinities and has been grinding the one that suits him worst. He has spent his whole childhood in the woods with his dead mother's herb notes, and it takes a stranger to point out that the forest is where he should have started. The Plant Institute is a single tree so large he cannot see the top of it, and it is called the Elder's Respite. On his way in, a girl in a green dress walks up to him, leans in, and sniffs him. This is Silva, the veiled acolyte with the slit snake eyes and the highest scores in their class. She informs him that he smells different from everyone else, and then that he smells weak, and then she leaves. The plant origin stone gives him a warmer welcome than the others did. Where earth crushed him and water nearly drowned him, plant tells him that it grows, emerges, and breathes life into what surrounds it, and then splits him into 2, for 1,000 copies of himself, and the whole thing is pleasant. He walks out with 2 more points. Spirit power 28. Too short. Which is when the entire institute empties out, because a mission has just been posted. The man on the platform is a dwarf named Grom from the Crafting Institute, and he is holding a bottle of green essence potion, which raises the spirit power of any low-ranked acolyte who drinks it. He needs an ingredient that grows 1 night a year, and tonight is the night. The 4-leaf moon clover, which only glows for someone with the plant element and only after dark. Anyone who brings one gets a potion. Whoever brings the most gets made a disciple of the alchemy path. Emory needs both of those things tonight, or he goes home with an empty head. He gets a sword and a map and heads west into the swamp, and this is where the story stops being a school story. The forest is full of things his palm helpfully labels for him. Fireflies the size of birds with a battle power matching his own. Drakes the size of crocodiles that double it. He is about to walk into black water when a chubby first year called Fatty stops him, laughs at him for jumping, and then introduces him to the group he has attached himself to. Their leader is a 5th-rank second year named Cole, who failed to get into the alchemists last year and does not intend to fail twice. Cole's offer is blunt. He watches their backs, they hand him every clover they find, and each of them still gets 1 potion out of it. With Cole our topper, who is built like a wall and lifts drakes one-handed, and Mags, a fire and plant girl who can cook. Emory takes the deal, eats roasted drake meat with strangers, and for 1 evening feels like part of something. 2 hours later he tugs on a 4-leaf clover that turns out to be bait, and a 3-meter angler vine pulls him into the air upside down. Topper hacks at its legs, the vines grow back harder than metal, Mags cannot get a clean shot, and then the thing takes a bolt of green light through the shoulder and Silva walks out of the bushes. She calls her entangle, closes her fist, and crushes a level 3 beast into pulp in front of 5 people who cannot do it between them. Then she stores the corpse in her ring and turns to leave, because she killed it and therefore it is hers. Cole calls her a half-breed and puts his spear at her throat. Silva points out that 4 men needing backup against 1 girl is not much of an argument. Cole tells her that her kind are not human, not even girls, and therefore enemies by definition. Emory has heard this exact reasoning before. It was shouted by men with torches on the night his father died, and it is now coming out of somebody standing on his side of the fight. Silva asks him which side he will fight on, them or his own. He does not get to answer because she attacks and Cole matches her, and when she tries to break the encirclement she comes straight at Emory as the weakest link. He is ready for that. He throws his inedible ration bread at her, drops his sword the instant their blades meet because he knows he cannot win a strength contest, and tackles her flat, then holds on and shouts for the others to hurry with his face buried where it should not be. Cole entangles them both. Silva calls him a pervert and cannot cast a spell. Then Cole loosens the roots around her hand, puts a spear tip against her fingers, and offers her a choice between giving up her ring and losing them one at a time. Emory, tied to her chest, can feel her heart going. He tells Cole he is going too far. Cole drives the spear down, grazes Emory's neck, and laughs that of course he was not serious. He is not stupid enough to get punished over a half-breed. That is when the sky turns white and a sound lands inside everyone's skull. The second one puts 4 of them on their knees. Fatty runs. Cole meets Emory's eyes for 1 second, then leaves with Mags and Topper, and Emory is tied to a girl who despises him in a swamp that something enormous has just walked into. Topper is the one who comes back. He hooks the roots with the back of his axe until Silva can break free, and she rewards Emory with a sword at his throat and then a slap across the face, which Emory agrees he has earned. They run, and a scream stops Emory, and he goes toward it, and Silva follows him while telling him there is no benefit to being a busybody. What they find is a red dragon eating Fatty. Magus Erica, the woman who announced the mission that afternoon, is slumped against a tree holding her own stomach closed. On the dragon's head stands an elf in scarlet armor with long golden hair, and when his gaze crosses Emory's, Emory cannot move a finger. The elf lifts a hand, drags Erica through the air by nothing at all, takes her by the throat, and calls her a pretentious human. Lightning hits his arm. A portal tears open overhead and the Academy's magi come down out of it, and one of them is Darius, who covers himself in a suit of sparkling rock, tells 3 terrified children to run, and flies straight at the red demon. They run. The dragon's head turns. Emory feels his own death arriving and screams at the other 2 to jump, and the breath goes past them close enough to blister his skin. Topper does not jump in time. His lower half is gone, melted, bones showing, and he is somehow still alive for the 5 seconds it takes his face to char, with one hand out toward Emory and his mouth shaping the words "help me." Emory starts forward. Silva catches his arm and tells him it is too late and drags him into the trees. Deeper in the forest they find Cole and Mags again, standing over a bleeding elf with ears twice the length of a human's. Silva explains what nobody has bothered to tell Emory yet. Elves are humanity's mortal enemy, and fighting that war is the reason the Academy exists at all. Cole is not interested in reporting the prisoner. He wants the contents of the dying elf's ring, and he thrusts for the skull. The elf swats the spear aside without effort, appears behind Cole, touches his shoulder, and remarks that the boy's physique is not bad and there is an ounce of talent in him. Acceptable, he says. Then the portal opens and 6 orcs come out of it with 3 cloaked elves behind them. Mags gets 2 steps before a spear pins her to a tree. Emory's palm reads the orcs at battle power 50 and gives the elves 3 question marks, and the leading elf's glance locks Emory and Silva in place so completely that they cannot speak. The old elf and the leader exchange a few words in a language Emory does not know, and something in it sounds like an apology between people who used to be friends. Then the old elf says he has no choice, and a black wisp comes out of his chest and goes into Cole's, and his body drops with the eyes open. What stands up wearing Cole kills 3 orcs in seconds with black orbs that need only to touch a thing for it to die, then swats aside lightning like a curtain. The 3 elves take it apart anyway. One traps the orbs in a mirror of liquid, one keeps the lightning coming, and the third goes to smoke, reappears behind Cole, and takes both his legs off at the thigh. They stab him unconscious, drag him through the portal, and mention that they only caught this one because it had been fighting Aegis for days and had just moved into a new body. Then the leader looks at the dead elf, says one soft word over him, and tells the others to kill the children. Silva burns her last card, a triangular pendant from her parents that throws a shield over both of them, which she holds with her teeth clenched while coughing blood, until the shield cracks and the pendant turns to dust. The Academy's magi are getting closer, so the elves leave rather than risk it. 2 orcs stay behind for the fun. Silva's battle power is 30. Emory's is 11, and he says so out loud, and she tells him that he is not brave, he is an idiot, and they are both going to die. Then she drinks half a bottle her clan leader gave her for exactly this, and throws him the rest. The potion is a bloodline booster, and it hurts like being burned alive. Green scales come up Silva's face and her eyes go fully serpent. Emory's hearing sharpens until he can hear a river he cannot see. His nails go into the soil like claws, fur comes up on his face, and his palm tells him what his mother left him. Fey bloodline activated. Battle power 11 becomes 36. He overshoots his first charge and runs straight past an orc into a tree, because he has never been fast before. Then he learns it in about 30 seconds. He cuts one orc's shoulder open, gets punched into an oak hard enough to cough blood, drops the giant with a thrown stone straight to the forehead the way a boy in an old story once did, and finally takes its head off in midair. It is his first kill, and what he feels is not horror. It is delight, and it lasts exactly long enough for the second orc to get behind them. Silva rolls clear. Emory does not. The spear goes through his chest and stops a few inches short of her head. He looks down at her with a hole in him and tells her he is glad it missed. Then he snaps the shaft, pulls the head out of his own body, and puts it through the orc's eye. Silva kills the last one, drops next to him and says out loud that they survived. He does not answer. His pulse is going out under her fingers. For the first time in her life, somebody outside her own clan has put themselves between her and a weapon, and she has no idea what to do with that, so she runs, not toward the institute but back toward the battlefield where the dragon is, to find someone who can heal him. Behind her, a black wisp lifts out of the dead elf and slides into the hole in Emory's chest. Emory wakes in the dark with no walls. His father is there and says he is dead, and that his son should not be standing here, and that the answer was never strength, it is finding a purpose. Gwen is there too, and what comes out of her is that he is a filthy poor noble who could not even save his father, and that he is not even human. A single-horned white wolf the size of a house looks him in the eye, breathes at him, and goes. And then something with no face and a mouth that does not move calls him more interesting than expected, promises he will forget all about this, and says they will meet again soon. He wakes up with Minerva leaning over him at dawn and no hole in his chest at all, just a scar. Silva has already dragged herself back with the Magi and is now loudly informing everyone that she is not friends with anyone here, which is how Emory knows she is fine. The bag he grabbed on the way out is not his. It is Cole's, and it has 11 four-leaf moon clovers in it. Silva argues, correctly, that the corpses and the dying girl are not going to be submitting anything before dawn, and takes 2 for herself as payment. Emory hands in the other 9. It turns out the entire year found fewer than 20 clovers between them, and the next best submission was 5. So Grom announces that the harvest is the worst in a century, and he will therefore not be taking an apprentice this year. Minerva walks in, leans down until her face is level with the dwarf's, and starts playing with his beard while asking whether he is really going back on his word to her student. Grom turns roughly the color of his own robes and tells the boy to follow him. On the way, he makes Emory promise to always say good things about him to Magus Minerva. Golden City is glass towers and flying boats and stairs that move on their own, and Grom's flying boat drops them at the Apothecary Institute, where the dwarf hands Emory to a senior apprentice named Cedric and stamps his palm. Apothecary Apprentice, Rank 1. 1 requirement down. Emory drinks a green essence potion on the spot, in front of Cedric, and it takes him from 28 to 30. Rank 2 Acolyte. He has passed. On the last afternoon of the last day, the worst learner in the history of the Academy has passed. Cedric, who is friendly the way a man is friendly to a client, notes that he is probably the least talented acolyte he has ever met, then takes him to the Magus Guild in the city, where a red-skinned, horned clerk named Aeon looks at his status and delivers the bad news. Earth Spirit, initial stage, incomplete. Water Spirit, incomplete. Plant Spirit, incomplete. Darkness Spirit, inestimable. Emory has the number, but he does not have the understanding behind it because he bought the last 2 points in a bottle. Without a completed element, he cannot claim a starting pack and he cannot cast anything at all, and Aeon estimates it would take him 2 weeks of solid work to finish even one. He has hours, which is when Cedric gets to the reason he came. He knows Grom hands out those potions every year, and he could hear more than 1 bottle in Emory's pouch. He offers to buy Emory basic spells outright, 1 spell per potion. Aeon slams his ledger shut and tells the boy that the potion is worth 5 spells, not 1, and that Cedric is a shameless man. Emory, who understands perfectly well that he is the least informed person in the room, does the smart thing. He puts 2 bottles on the counter and asks the grumpy one to choose for him. So Aeon does, out of spite as much as kindness. Stone Skin because defense keeps you alive. Whip Splash for offense. The Darkness Spirit Manual, since Emory never got into that Origin Stone room at all. Dark Smoke, for running away from things he cannot beat. And then a rare one out of a carved box, Fragmentation, which separates a plant into its component parts and will make an apothecary apprentice's life enormously easier. Cedric slaps the counter, complains that he is now making no profit whatsoever, and pays. For spells and a manual, bought with 2 bottles Emory earned by nearly dying in a swamp. High above all of this, the headmaster of the Magus Academy, an old man called Altus Drayden, is hearing the report on the night's attack. A government investigator confirms it was not an invasion but an off-the-books operation. A small elf force chasing one particular elf deep into human territory, led by Aegis, the Red Demon. 1 acolyte was taken alive and nobody knows why. Several acolytes are dead. Altus tells his magi that the war has arrived at the Academy's front door, and that their job is still to raise the children who will fight it. On the last night, the 5 from Earth make a pact. Clea cuts her palm and bleeds into a cup of wine, and Julian follows, and Thrax follows while complaining about drinking a Roman's blood, and Chumo, and Emory last. Julian lays out what they are. He holds the line, Clea and Thrax hit, Chumo works from the shadows, and Emory supports from the back. Emory does not like being the support. He agrees anyway, and privately swears he will not stay the boy who hid behind a cupboard. In the morning, 10,000 acolytes stand in front of the purple tower to be ranked. Clea places 91st among the elemental acolytes. Thrax scrapes in at 99th among the fighters and will not shut up about it. Julian checks his own number and decides not to share it. Near the top, 5 names sit at rank 4 and rank 5 while Emory is still rank 2, and one name, Vita, appears on both lists at once. Then the crystal shows the acolytes who failed, and Emory reads the name Fatty, and understands that in this world dying is ordinary enough to be a line on a list. Silva drifts over to stand next to him, claims the view is better here, and meets his friends. Thrax challenges her to a fight on the spot. She tells him he should worry about surviving at home first. Thrax says nobody in his country could touch him now. She tells him to just watch. Then Altus raises his staff, 10,000 palms burn at once, and Emory's numbers change in front of his eyes. Battle power 16 becomes 11. Spirit power 30 becomes 20. Restriction spell placed. Silva, who comes from a higher world, is not affected at all, and she explains what nobody else will. Every acolyte from a lower world gets a restriction laid on them before they go home, so that a backward planet does not leap ahead on borrowed knowledge. Their strength drops, their spells mostly stop working, and their mouths are sealed too. Try to tell anyone on your own world about the academy and no words come out. Everything they earned this week stays here until they return. Julian, who has been polite to everyone for 7 days straight, finally loses his temper and calls it what it is. Their world will stay a lower world for as long as anyone above them decides it should. Silva's stare shuts him up. Then Emory apologizes for him, and she answers the question anyway. The restriction lifts when you reach a high enough rank, or when your world grows strong enough to break the spell on its own. Then she tells Emory to come back next year and return the favor, and the light takes her. Emory wakes up on a riverbank in Britain with the smell of grass in his nose. It has been 7 days for him. On Earth, months have passed. He walks upstream to what used to be his home and finds crows, ash, and 12 bodies. His father is still in the cellar, unburned and rotting, surrounded by the marauders he took with him. Emory moves the fallen pillar aside on his own, which he could not have done a week ago, wraps his father in cloth from the cupboard he once hid behind, and carries him out on his back. He buries him beside his mother's headstone and tells her that her husband missed her, and that he does not blame either of them for what he is. Then he digs 12 more holes for the servants and knights he grew up around, and finishes as the sky turns orange. That is when 2 horsemen ride in, delighted, because their boss has been waiting for proof that the last Ambrose is dead. Emory does not run. He picks up a stone and puts it in the first man's forehead, and while they are still laughing about it he sets his feet. The marauder comes in expecting to butcher a child and finds himself blocked, then outpaced, then outthought, because Emory has swordsmanship level 3 in his head and a body that has been rebuilt from the ground up. He takes the man's sword hand off at the wrist. The second one refuses to believe it even while it happens and pays for that. Emory kills him, and it is nothing like killing an orc. He hesitates for a long moment first and hates himself for the hesitation, and then does it anyway because the alternative is a man riding home with news that the Cruton boy is alive. Before that, he gets one name out of them. Their chief is called Podrig. Then he rides off with a wound in his lower back that is deeper than he thought, and somewhere in the dark a voice he half recognizes tells him he is naive, stupid beyond help, and on his own this time. He falls off the horse and someone picks him up. He wakes in a round hut of straw and wood that smells of boiling herbs, being tended by an old woman everyone calls Granny and a young man named Lanzo. Granny is a druid, a healer the surrounding settlements bring their dying to. So nobody in the village of Misshire asks a stranger where he came from. That is how they live. Emory repays her the only way he knows. He fetches herbs. And the moment his hand closes on a purple-backed leaf, the analyze spell he bought in Golden City fires by itself, because it belongs to the Apothecary Institute rather than to any element, and the restriction cannot touch it. A full readout of the plant's properties opens in his mind. Then the Academy offers him a contribution point for adding it to the galaxy's database. Emory stands in a herb garden in Britain and understands that he is holding a fortune. 10 unknown plants that afternoon. Later, with the fragmentation spell, 10 points each instead of 1, because taking a plant apart teaches the database far more than touching it does. A rank 2 ingredient, a blue powder Granny guards carefully, is worth 30 on its own. Months pass and he becomes, quietly, the most valuable person in the settlement. He improves Granny's methods until her healing paste dries around twice as fast as it used to. He works out a stamina potion, a strength paste, a cleansing potion that kills disease. He passes his growing techniques on to the villagers and Misshire brings in its biggest harvest anyone can remember. Granny watches a boy invent in weeks what she spent decades learning, and tells him nature loves him. The work itself teaches him the magic. Tilling soil, hauling water, growing things, day after day of it pushes his understanding of plant to the initial stage, then the middle and drags earth and water up behind it. Only darkness stays blank. He sits in a cave for hours and gets nothing. Across the world, the other four are learning what the restriction really costs. Chumo turns up in his father's palace in Dongbyo after a week missing and cannot explain where he went, because his mouth will not form the words. His stepmother, the queen, and his two half-brothers have been waiting for exactly this. They produce a servant who found him sleeping in the wine room on the night of the kingdom's most sacred festival, and the king, who cannot protect a concubine's son against that much evidence, throws a sword down at his feet and banishes him until he brings honor back to the crown. Chumo bows to the floor, walks out with his mother, and promises to return. Behind him, a shrine priestess tells the king she has had a vision of a black three-legged bird leaving the kingdom, and that it means great change is coming. The king cannot imagine it has anything to do with the son he just exiled. Julian runs home to Rome and finds soldiers at his family's gate and the house stripped bare. His father, a governor in Asia Minor, was accused of treason by political rivals while Julian was gone. The Senate believed the evidence, executed his father and his uncle in the public square, confiscated everything, and exiled the women and children on the grounds that the sins of the father are not the sins of the son. Julian, who is 16, is now the head of House Kaiser. He finds the merchant holding his father's hidden savings, houses his aunt and his sister Celia with all of it, and enlists in a legion at the lowest rank there is, because in Rome the only road back to a name is war. Thrax has the opposite problem. Back among the maid, his new body makes him unbeatable. He passes the warrior initiation 3 years early, almost single-handedly holds a neighboring village against a GD raid, and within a month is being sung about as the son of Ares. Chiefs start sending him their daughters. He turns all of them down for Sura, the girl he has wanted since childhood, and is 2 months into a life of ale, feasting and an upcoming wedding when a Roman cavalry column rides into his village. The envoy wants an alliance. Mithridates is coming from the east, and the GD are massing thousands half a week's march north to take advantage of it. The village wants to stone him. Thrax is the one who shuts everybody up and asks the only question that matters, to what end, and what happens to our women and children while we are away fighting for Rome. The Roman promises Rome's protection, and Thrax believes him, partly because of a Roman he already knows. That night he gives Sura a bracelet of hunted bone. She gives him a shield she had forged, and the wedding waits for the war. And in Alexandria, the girl the others know as Clea has a private study inside the great library, because she is Cleopatra the 7th, third daughter of the 12th Ptolemy. She spends 2 months cultivating instead of studying and pushes both wind and water to the middle stage. Then her sister's vizier comes to fetch her, because Berenice, who is holding the throne while their exiled father is off in Rome, is drowning in a room full of foreign envoys and cannot answer them. Clea walks in, stands beside her sister, and negotiates with every delegation in the room in 10 languages without a translator, which the Egyptians take as proof that she is the one royal who loves them. What none of them know is that the languages come from the mark on her palm. Back in Britain, winter comes, and Granny's cough gets worse every day. Emory asks where the blue powder comes from and she starts to say it is better he does not know, and then chokes. Lanzo tells him later, in a whisper, the powder comes from the forbidden forest a day's walk west, also called the Evernight Forest, where the trees grow so thick the sun never reaches the ground and nobody who goes in comes out. Emory, who has watched a red dragon eat a boy, asks what kind of monster lives there. Lanzo says nobody who has seen it survives. Emory points out that if nobody survives, somebody has been talking. Then Lanzo changes the subject and asks him to help take the year's tribute to the capital. Lion Arch is the last place Emory wants to go, so he wraps his face and goes anyway, for 2 reasons: the Marauder Chief Podrig and the largest collection of plants on the island. At the royal warehouse, he watches the tribute system work. The steward weighs 2 full carts of Mistshire's entire year and pays out 300 coins for what should be 500, deducting 100 of it as tribute on the orders of Lord Phantomar. When old Jacob objects, the steward tells him to take it up with the king's right hand. Then Jacob quietly hands over a second, smaller bag under the table, because otherwise next year will be worse. They cannot open a stall, the fees are impossible. They cannot sell in the market, that is illegal. They cannot sell outside the walls, that is the dungeon. Jacob hands Emory and Lanzo 5 coins each and goes to get drunk. Emory stares at the 5 coins. A year ago he walked around with dozens in his pocket and never once wondered whose season of labor they were. 5 coins does not buy a sword. The cheapest decent blade in the smithy is 30, and the 5-coin rack is all chipped and bent. So Emory walks 3 streets over to the Lion Arch Apothecary, the biggest shop in the city, and puts 3 stamina potions and 2 healing pastes on the counter of a fat old alchemist who sniffs them, tastes them, names both effects instantly, and offers 5 coins for the lot on the grounds that they are common and he does not know who made them. Emory does not haggle. He asks why, listens to the whole answer, adds 5 more of each until the offer is 10 coins, and then refuses the money. He asks instead for 1 hour among the shop's herbs. Lanzo thinks his friend has lost his mind. Emory walks out of that back room with dozens of plants registered that the galaxy has never catalogued, and a fistful of samples to take apart later. Then he goes back and puts a bottle of his cleansing potion on the counter and offers it for free. The alchemist, who has just spent an hour listening to this boy think, refuses to take anything for nothing and asks what he actually wants. What he wants is this: sell the paste and the potions, watch how they perform, remember who made them, and buy from him properly the next time he walks in. The old man laughs and takes the deal, then asks his name. Emory, who cannot afford to be Emory in this city, says he can be called Merlin. That night he goes looking for Podrick. Lanzo refuses to be sent back to the inn, says he already thinks of Emory as a brother, and comes along. They ask the same question in 5 taverns and get nothing, except that by the 4th one Emory has noticed the cloaked men following them. He steers Lanzo into an alley, and when the swords come out, Emory is simply gone. Over a wall and onto a roof with a body that no longer works like a 15-year-old's. He lets them take Lanzo. He apologizes for it in his own head, and he follows them to their safe house anyway, because this is the only trail he has. Inside, a small thin man with a knife is asking Lanzo who sent him. Lanzo, on the floor, invents a story about a village boy who wants to join the great chief's cause, and never once says Emory's name. So the thin man puts the knife through his thigh and twists it, and asks again and does it to the other thigh. Emory smears strength paste on his arms and legs, throws a stone into the trees to split the guard off, drops one man silently and takes his sword, and lets the body be found on purpose so the biggest of them gets sent outside too. Then he comes through the window. He kills one on the way in, cuts Lanzo free, and discovers that the small man is faster than he looks and that the giant, Gondo, knocks him 3 steps backward with a single blow. Still, Emory gets a name out of the man's own mouth in the middle of the fight. The Crimson Fong, and Podrick is real. Then the marauder who left earlier comes back with more of them, and Emory is surrounded with a crippled friend behind him. He knocks one out cold by throwing a heavy purse of coins at his head, tips a table over Lanzo as a shield, and gets ready to lose. The door opens instead, and a man in white armor and a red robe walks in over a dying marauder. The Crimson Fong's leader recognizes him and loses all the color in his face. Yvain, the Knight of the Lion. 2 marauders charge him and he moves through them like a blur, precise thrusts between chest and shoulder, both alive and both finished, in about a second and a half. Then a full-grown lion comes through the door behind him, catches Gondo's great sword in its teeth, and takes him apart. Emory stands there and understands exactly how far he still has to go. This is the swordsman his father was compared to. He also understands he cannot be seen here, because Yvain would know his face, and a living Ambrose heir is worth killing. So he goes out the window while the surrender is being called. And then he hears a voice he has not heard in months and stops in the trees. Gwen is out there in red battle armor with a lion on the shoulder. She has been running this operation herself, because a settlement delegation begged her father for protection against exactly these men and got a shrug and a promise to inform the garrison. She has the Crimson Fong's leader on the ground, and she is asking him whether they were behind the attack on the Ambrose estate, and whether there was a boy named Emory, and whether they killed him. Emory's hand comes up on its own. Then the memory arrives, we can't be friends anymore, and it stops him where he stands. He steps back onto a dead branch. A night turns. He runs and spends the whole run trying to invent a reason why she would be asking, and cannot make any of them fit. In the morning Lanzo comes back to the inn on the princess's knight's escort, with a bag of coins for his trouble, bandaged from the waist down and holding no grudge at all. He spends the coins on gifts for the villagers, including a hand-knitted coat for Granny, and makes them a day late leaving. They ride into Misthire after dark under a blood moon, and there is nobody at the gate. Jacob goes hut to hut shouting names. Everything valuable is untouched. There are no horse tracks, no signs of a fight. 30 people are simply gone. They find them behind Granny's hut, in a pit, being buried one at a time by a man named Obed who is not really there anymore. The whole settlement, young and old, dried out and aged down to bone and white eyes. Granny comes out of the hut and tells them what happened. A cough went through the village hours after the cart left, and she brewed against it all night and it took them anyway. Lanzo, standing beside Emory, goes gray, because he has heard this before. It is what emptied his own family's estate, the illness that left only him. Granny shakes her head and puts her face in her hands, and Emory works out that this has happened more than once across the 2 years Lanzo has been on the road with her. Then she fetches 3 bottles of green potion and tells them to drink it as a preventative. Lanzo and Jacob drink immediately. Emory lifts his bottle, and something at the back of his skull will not shut up, so he runs analyze on it. Paralysis poison. Shocks the nervous system. Renders the drinker unable to move. He smashes his own bottle and knocks the others out of their hands, and he is far too late. Lanzo gets as far as what and you before he hits the floor. Jacob and Obed go down after him. And Granny changes. Her face folds in on itself, her eyes push forward in their sockets. Her teeth come in like fangs, and the warm old woman who saved Emory's life is a cackling hag telling him he is more talented than she is, which is a shame. She raises a hand and the roots come in through the walls, and Emory recognizes the spell, because it is entangle. Then black smoke rises off her other palm and twists itself into a rope, and his palm reads it as a rank 3 darkness spell. She is running both at once. She has never been to the Magus Academy, no restriction is slowing her, and she never once says the name. Whatever she is, she learned this here in Britain. His iron sword goes dull hacking roots, then bends, then gets torn out of his hands. He hesitates once, looking at Lanzo lying with his eyes open, and a root takes his ankle. The smoke rope wraps him. The paralysis bottle goes down his throat. He wakes on the alchemy table he used to work at, unable to move anything but his eyes. Granny leans over him, takes his chin, and looks into his eyes until she finds the green in them. So that is what he is, she says. Fate. Then she gets to work. She smears Jacob with blood, draws a circle and a 6-pointed star on his chest, chants something in no language Emory knows, and drives a jet-black dagger into the middle of it. Jacob wakes up to die. His body convulses and a screaming white stream pours out of his mouth, his nose, his ears and his eyes, and Granny swallows it. What is left on the table is one more dried husk, and her hair has gone a little darker. She tells Emory what she is. A plague. A curse on all living things. Then she puts Lanzo on the table and cuts his shirt open, and Emory begs, and she does not hear him, and then she stops the knife halfway because she notices Lanzo's eyes are open. Lanzo is not brave about it. He says he is afraid to die and more afraid to know. He asks her once whether it was her. She says yes, you are correct. And Lanzo, who has spent 2 years fetching her herbs, erupts. He treated her like his mother, and she tells him cheerfully that she never was, and that he should be happy he gets to see his family again, and puts the dagger through his chest. The last thing Lanzo does is look at Emory. When it is over, Granny catches her reflection in the cauldron and laughs, and then touches her own face and finds tears on it. She has no idea where they came from. She wipes them off and turns to Emory, because he is next. She tears his shirt open over the scar an orc left him, and paints the blood on and lifts the dagger. And Emory, who has spent this entire night unable to move, finds out what hate does to a bloodline. Fur, claws, fangs, and black engravings crawling out of the scar on his chest and up across his cheeks. He tears free of the poison, ricochets off the ceiling, and hits her hard enough to blow the roof off the hut. She stands up out of the wreckage unhurt with skin the color and hardness of oak. What follows is a chase through a winter forest under a red moon, and it is not a fight he is winning. She turns to smoke every time he closes. She traps him twice and he rips his way out twice. She taunts him constantly and his own transformation is feeding on that, so he makes himself slow down and think, and works out that her shadow ropes are anchored to her, which means every time one comes out from behind a tree, she is behind that tree. So he stops chasing and starts flattening trees. A dozen trunks later, he is above her, dropping. She gets one spell off. A crescent of black light, rank 3 called Enfeeble Blade. His right arm is still hanging in the air when he lands. She has the moon dagger in his chest before he can register it, sitting on top of him, and this time Emory gets to feel from the inside what she did to Lanzo, his own life coming out of him in a white stream. It is a rich one. She screams with delight and asks what he actually is, and her hair thickens and her skin tightens and 200 years fall off her, and she stands up a woman in her 30s promising herself she is finally going to return the favor to somebody she calls that bitch. Emory does the only thing left. He grabs her hand and shoves the dagger deeper into his own chest, and while she is staring at that, he sits up and bites through her neck. She tears loose. He gets an arm around her and bites again and takes a piece of her with him. She turns to shadow and is gone. Emory lies in the snow with one arm, bleeding out, and the voice in his head tells him he is hopeless, that she is a rank 6 at least, that she certainly has a healing spell, and that she will be back before he is dead. Emory laughs and says at least he won. The voice says this is definitely not winning. Emory says she is the one who ran. He asks who he has been talking to, as a joke, in what he assumes are his last seconds. And the voice announces itself as Kilgraga, the guardian of cows, whose greatness is still feared across the galaxy. Emory is still laughing at his own dying imagination when the woman's footsteps come crunching back through the trees, and the sky above him turns into a stone ceiling. He is in a cave in agony, which means he is alive. At the end of the tunnel there is black fire, and a dragon 10 times the size of a warhorse with a chain on its back leg. It spits something invisible at him that closes the hole in his chest and takes the pain out of his shoulder, then congratulates him on having been blessed by the awesome, mighty, great, and powerful Kilgraga. Cannot grow his arm back. It does not want to discuss the chain. The chamber has 2 other things in it. A door so large that an invisible pressure stops Emory from getting near it, which the dragon says he will not open until his understanding of the elements is far beyond what it is. And a window, through which Emory can watch the woman who murdered his friends walking in circles in the forest, turning over the trees he knocked down, looking for a body she is never going to find. This place, Kilgraga says, is a space made by cows, the ruler of darkness. Emory cannot leave it because he is too weak to leave it. The Academy's recall spell will not reach through the barrier either. As far as the mark on his palm is concerned, he is dead. He asks what it will take. The dragon says, become a magus, about 5 to 10 years. Emory goes looking for a way to shorten that, tries flattering an obviously vain dragon into handing over a treasure or a spell, and gets told there is no treasure, no spell, and to go away. And then, because it has been enjoying itself, Kilgraga tells him to actually look at where he is standing. The whole chamber is saturated with the pure energy of cows, the same principle as the Academy's origin stones, except those each feed 1 element and this feeds all of them. 10 years becomes 2 or 3. The storeroom at the far end of the tunnel has water and sacks of tasteless triangular bread, which Analyze identifies as lembas, elf food. Emory works out what that means. Something happened after he blacked out in that swamp, and this space was never meant for him. He gets to work. Earth to the middle stage in 4 days, which had taken him weeks with plant. Water after it. Stone skin, which he tests by throwing himself at a wall. Whip splash, which needs water nearby to work at all, so he shelves it. Rank 3 in 3 weeks. Rank for a month later. And Kilgraga tells him he is going backwards, that his face looks proud when it should be ashamed, and that at this rate the dragon will need a 5-year nap before Emory becomes a magus. So Emory finally snaps and calls him what he is. A big lazy phony chained in a cave, all talk, who promised guidance and has delivered nothing but insults. The dragon rises, spreads its wings, and lifts him up into the air on a cushion of cow's energy until the ground is out of sight and the density of the stuff is cutting at him like small blades. Then it looks him in the eye and says it wonders whether he is brave or stupid, and that it does not break promises. What Emory sees next is his own spirit core. A small sphere holding 4 separate lights. 2 dominant, green and yellow, 1 smaller blue, and 1 so tiny it is barely a dot. The 4 are not cooperating. They are strangling each other. Every time he cultivates one, that element swells and squeezes the others, which is why his progress crawls and why darkness. The smallest, the one the other 3 shove aside every single time, has never grown at all. Humans, the dragon says, have been doing this wrong since before they had civilization, and dragons mastered the elements while humanity was still learning to build. The instruction is simple, and it is the opposite of everything Minerva taught the class on day 1. Do not feed the 3. Give everything to darkness because darkness rules over space. Make it the core and make the other 3 serve it. Emory asks the obvious question. The Academy forbids cultivating 2 elements at once because your body explodes. The dragon says the technique only works in the early stages before a core solidifies, which is exactly why every magus who tried it failed. It needs a place dense with spirit energy, which is where he happens to be standing, and it needs a person who can survive being torn apart. Humans have weak minds. They stopped trying and the method fell out of history. Emory thinks it over. He decides the dragon is certainly planning to use him for something, and that he intends to use the dragon right back. Then he sits down and does it. He reaches for the little dark blob, lets the wall down, and lets all 3 of the others crash into it at once, because Kilgraga tells him doing it one at a time makes the later merges close to impossible. The remaining elements will read it as extermination and fight to the death. Green comes first, a world of trees and roots. Then yellow, sand and stone. Then blue, water arriving from every direction. Everything converges and it feels like 1,000 blades opening him at the same time. His body shakes and blood runs out of his mouth and he does not make a sound. The black light dims and shrinks and goes out entirely, and his core turns clear dark, and then the other 3 start thrashing to get out of it and cracks spread across the sphere. He watches, from everywhere at once. The trees wither, the water go foul, the stones split. Kilgraga shouts that this is the crucial part and then vanishes, and the core cracks and reaches the edge of shattering. The faceless figure from his death dream reappears, twists into a mirror of Emory himself, and tells him he is not going to make it. Tells him to give up. Emory, who has nothing left to lose in either world, screams and grabs all 3 lights and drags them in. The core detonates, and what is left where it was is a solid gray-dark sphere with green, yellow and blue circling inside it, chasing each other, working together. He wakes up on his back, vomits blood, and is fine seconds later. Darkness is no longer listed among his affinities, because it is no longer an affinity. It is the core. All three remaining elements have jumped to their high stage at once. His spirit force is 55, and from now on the energy of cows flows in as one steady stream and feeds all of them equally, like a lord paying every one of his people the same. Rank 5 arrives at spirit force 60. Then the ranks stop coming and the dragon explains why. Rank 6 needs 100 in every element at its peak stage, and becoming a magus needs 1,000. At his current rate, that is still 5 to 10 years. Emory briefly wonders whether he has been played, and gets told to stop worrying about the mountain and go take the next step. Small things have changed. Stone's skin now carries a dark shimmer in its cracks and holds against the moon dagger's edge where it used to fail. Whip Splash lands harder and its edges run black. The dagger itself reads as a Tier 3 artifact whose spell stays locked to its owner. Emory starts carving a wooden practice sword and learning to swing it left-handed, since his right arm is gone. Kilgraga sneers at him. What does a magus want with a sword? Emory says that in his own world only a fraction of a spell's power will work, so he needs something to keep himself alive, and that the day the dragon offers him something better, he will put the sword down. That is the reason he gives. The real one is that he wanted to be a knight since he was small enough to be told he never could. 8 months after he came home. 4 of them in this cave with a chained dragon and a window onto a forest. The mark on his palm lights up for the first time since he was declared dead. An invitation to the second year at Magus Academy. 3 months. The recall activates in 30 days. There are 4 friends waiting there, an apothecary institute he has barely set foot in, spells worth the name, and somewhere in that world, perhaps a way to get his arm back. He stands in front of the dragon and demands to be let out, and does not care how angry it makes him. Kilgraga sighs and says he really does not give up easily, and admits he has grown tired of the same view anyway.